Hi, and welcome to part two of my armchair exploration in La Rochelle, France. The first video, which aired this past Thursday, was there was so much I deep dove into that it just was going really long. So I cut it in half. I'm going to be telling you about the second half of the video. I'll probably start it a few seconds early, like how it ended last time was pretty abrupt. So I hope you enjoy it. Please feel free to comment below about anything that I might have missed or about any experiences you might have had in La Rochelle. And I'll see you on the flip side. Bye. So far, La Rochelle has ticked a lot of boxes. In fact, all the boxes. So let's look at the food culture. I'm not sure if I've told you guys this, but I am what is called a super taster and a super smeller. I probably have extra taste buds that can pick up more subtle flavors, but also I can smell more things. My high school students used to call me the bloodhound because if they had anything in their lockers that was contraband, like alcohol or weed, I'd smell it. Sometimes smelling a lot more than other people is not pleasant. It's why I didn't go into the medical field. However, if you're also a foodie, it can make for really good eating. If you like seafood, La Rochelle is nirvana. It's like being invited to an oyster festival every single week. They have oysters, scallops, mussels, razor clams, all the things. And fresh fish, and the markets overflow with them all year round. La Rochelle, as I said, is a working port. And fishermen and women bring their catch of the day in every single day. I read an expat who said that if you don't like seafood, you might run out of things to eat here. I told my husband and he snort laughed like it was one of the funniest things he'd ever heard. Translation: we are not those people who will ever get tired of seafood, including oysters on the half shell. Side note though, for those of you who don't like seafood, there are plenty of other options in La Rochelle. I went looking. In looking around at restaurants in the area, there's a lot of French food, of course, because we were in France, as well as Italian, Thai, Chinese, even one Mexican restaurant that looked kind of legit. Outside of the restaurants, the markets are bursting with other things, other meats, cheeses, fruits, vegetables, whatever's in season. I'm showing you pictures as I'm talking about it of the market by someone who actually lives and works in La Rochelle. It's such a variety, I doubt that anybody would get tired of one taste or another. Now that I made myself hungry, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about community. La Rochelle has a pretty lively local scene with students, creatives, families, and expats all living there together. Retirees, too. It's very vibrant without being completely insane. Like, the Riviera in the summer months is insane. It's packed with tourists, absolutely packed. Even small little Carcassonne, which is up above the Mediterranean, is packed with tourists in the spring, summer, and part of fall because of the giant walled castle. Now, I don't mind this to some extent. I just avoid the areas when the tourists are packed in there. La Rochelle has a lot of festivals going on all year, including art festivals, music festivals, whatever you could possibly think of. Winters are quieter. If you thrive on this year-round buzz of activity and festivals going on all the time, take note. If you like hot and sweaty summers, this is not the place for you. Just like almost everywhere in France, I'm sure that La Rochelle has a Christmas market. In fact, I'm going to stop and look because I forgot to look for that. So yeah, just like almost everywhere else in France, La Rochelle has a big Christmas market, including the little chalets that they put up that sell mulled wines and winter food and Christmas stuff like chestnuts, lots of local foods and festive illuminations and other seasonal events. I don't know this is true, but maybe some of the boats even decorate. The market stalls are also placed in various parts of the city, not all crammed into one part. You can even find a lot of other activities like horse-drawn carriage ride along the waterfront in the Christmas time. The surrounding villages also host their own Christmas markets. All right, so now I know. I didn't find any pictures of it that were free, and I can't really afford to pay yet. So Maybe I'll find something on YouTube that shows me what their Christmas market looks like. Back to summers. If you like your average temperature, and I'm talking Fahrenheit here for my American viewers, if you like average temperatures between 65 and 75 degrees in the summertime with a few days going hot, you'll be right at home. If you like reflective winters that still have great light for your studio and a very mild climate so you can still be out and about, you might love it. The town doesn't close up for winter, though, like some of the smaller villages. There are still great places to go and meet friends. There's still a great cafe culture. And the average climate, even in winter, is 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, it might dip below that for a few days, but it's not weeks and weeks and weeks of cold winter. As you guys know, or if you've been watching, as you know, or if you haven't, this is your first video, I'll tell you. I am an artist. I also help other people improve their art or their creative minds and ability to help improve memory, etc. And I'm going to be hosting creative retreats once I'm in France. So one of my criteria for a future home is beauty. Not just Instagram pretty, but landscape and light that feed the creative soul. La Rochelle is beautiful in a calm, breezy, bright sort of way, rather than a pretentious and super ornate way. Though there are some gorgeous and ornate places too. The chateaus in the Charente-Maritime are nothing to be sniffed at. There's the harbor, some pastel buildings, some buildings just brushed white with the salt air, reflections on the Atlantic, the long coastal light. And let's not forget, it faces west. And the sunsets are amazing. Another person who lives in La Rochelle took some pictures of the sunsets. And I don't mind sitting here quiet while we view them. The water in the harbors is so turquoise it almost feels fake. But the whole city just invites you to sit down and sketch something, or paint, or take 1,000 photographs to take back home to your studio. So this is something that excites me. La Rochelle could be the perfect place to host retreats. Imagine a weekend or a week of coastal sketching, painting sailboats and fishing boats, and sometimes even yachts. Or when the tide goes out, painting pictures of those little boats that just sit on the sand until the tide comes back in and they float again. Or visiting one of the chateaus nearby, or even booking one out. Wandering in and out of other artisan shops or galleries, and long cafe conversations in the evening, taking a wine tour. The city has the infrastructure, boutique hotels, guest houses, and the train links. And it has the atmosphere to fit this calm, reflective, learning to slow down creative process. It has enough of that joyful atmosphere, not just to make a retreat relaxing, but to make it transformative. It's not just a vacation. We want a transformation. Plus, the weather is friendly enough that you can sketch outdoors more often than not, which is great considering, well, the whole urban sketching thing being part of the creative process. And when it is rainy, there are tons of awning-covered spaces and other indoor spaces to sketch as well. There's an indoor market area, a covered market area, where you could spend hours sketching vegetable, fruit, and fish vendors. As I've been talking, obviously, I've been showing you photographs that have been taken in La Rochelle of the markets and other places that would be just fantastic to sketch or to paint a more in-depth acrylic painting from a sketch study or oil. I don't want to leave you oil painters out. There are a few practical things to keep in mind now that we've gotten through all the big criteria. Popular neighborhoods like Vieux-Port, which is on the big giant port, can be pricier, both the market and the living, especially if you want those picture postcard views. If you want more space for a studio or a garden, the newer neighborhoods or surrounding villages are another good option. And yes, there are the summer crowds and tourists to think of. Let's get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty and talk cost comparisons. I do not this week have a visual price overlay. I'm just going to say the prices, and I'm going to say them in the current US dollar, not the euro, because because the dollar is fluctuating so much and the value of the dollar has gone down so much that it changes on the daily. And I'm going to do a cost comparison, just like I've done before, of a few things between where I am now in the Durham, North Carolina area and La Rochelle. First, let's talk rent, which is the main cost and is probably going to cover, it's probably going to be half of your main cost of living, at least, depending on what you want and depending on what you can afford. So in Durham, for a 3-bedroom house outside of the city center, I'm not even thinking inside the city center, it's crazy. Then I'm going to compare it with La Rochelle for a similar place. So we're talking a small house or townhouse with a small garden and 3 bedrooms and at least one bathroom, of course. The rentals I've scoped out in La Rochelle often have little gardens and are in great locations for walking or cycling or getting to the grocery store. And what I found out is basically La Rochelle is about half the cost of Durham for renting. In Durham, a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house rents out. I'm looking at my computer so I can see what it rents out for. The average cost of a 3-bedroom, 1-bath is $2,383.33. So you're talking $2,400 a month. The average cost of a house like that in La Rochelle is $1,163.42. The La Rochelle houses are probably smaller in square footage. That's half. That's crazy. That's less than half of the cost of a place here. While we might pay more if we were living closer to the city center, being in a small house so our pets could have a little garden to get into and having everything still walkable or bikeable is just icing on the cake for me. We're away from the tourists. We can go into the center whenever we feel like it, and we can get around and have a little elbow room for half what we would pay in the outskirts of Durham. Now, we own our home here now, so we have a lot of square footage and a very big yard, but we're on a very busy highway, so we can't really, it's not walkable. So we pay a lot less than that because we got a mortgage before the housing bubble went crazy. But we'll be selling this house and probably renting in France, maybe forever, or maybe we'll buy something once we decide where we want to stay forever. On to groceries. Groceries are very similar in cost, though the quality of groceries in La Rochelle is better. It's almost so much more is locally produced, or at least produced in France. Whereas, as I've talked about before, in the United States, all of our grocery services are serviced by like 8 big conglomerate companies. So everything tastes the same because they're grown on factory farms and harvested before they're ripe and then shipped across the country to everywhere else. And the cost of groceries here is going up thanks to those lovely tariffs that we won't talk about, that don't hurt the other countries nearly as much as they hurt us, the consumers. Detected a little anger in my face. It's frustration, yeah. While we sit here and watch people's lose their food safety altogether right now. Okay, back to something more positive. A decent mid-range bottle of wine will always be cheaper in France. La Rochelle is not an exception. Stuff like, fast food or stuff like that, there are minor differences, but they're relatively the same. But like I said, groceries in general, you'll spend about the same monthly as you do here. You just need to be aware that the quality you're getting in France will be better. The flavor will be better. Let's look at utilities. Monthly. Basic utilities for about a 915 square foot apartment or house. This includes electricity, heating, cooling, water, and trash pickup. In Durham, the average is about $230 a month for all of those things combined. Not bad. In La Rochelle, it's about $159, $160 a month for all of those things. For, again, like I said, 915 square feet. Mobile phone plans for one person with 10 gigabytes plus of data. In Durham, the average is about $58. And that's going up and up and up too. Most people I know, even with one phone, spend upwards of $100 or more on their plans. In La Rochelle, the average is $20 per month per phone for the same stuff. I've never used 10 gigabytes of data on my phone, ever. So that makes it about 65% less than Durham. Broadband internet, unlimited data. La Rochelle system has tons and tons of internet hotspots all over their town, and also very good fiber Wi-Fi. Some people are on like a network of fiber, so if a lot of people overload that fiber network, things might slow down a little, but they don't seem to be having any problems at all with their internet service. For that internet service, for broadband internet, here in the US, the average cost that we're paying right now for our fiber for just the internet, nothing else, no cable, no services, no streaming services, just Wi-Fi, we are paying currently $80 a month. That's our average in this area. And that's for fast service because we both work from home. The average cost of the same type of service with the same speeds in La Rochelle is $34. Again, less than half what we're paying here. Restaurants are similar to this in other places in France, but let's talk about them between Durham and La Rochelle. The average cost of dining at an inexpensive restaurant in the Durham area, we're talking like fast food, but also slightly over fast food, like a Denny's or Dunkin' or something like that. The average cost of a meal there is about 15, 16 bucks. The average cost of a meal at an inexpensive restaurant for one person in La Rochelle is about 14 bucks. So not a big difference there. This is where it gets down to the nitty gritty. A meal for two at a mid-range restaurant, 3 courses, like we're talking appetizer, main, and dessert, and this doesn't include alcoholic beverages. The average cost in Durham is $75 for 2 people. And again, remember to add that 20% tip onto the end, and you're at $90. The average cost of dining out at the same type of restaurant, 3 courses in La Rochelle, is $64. Now, again, they don't have a tipping culture. They get paid to work there. So you can throw another euro or 2 on there as a tip if you feel that you got great service and you just want to help them out. They'll appreciate it. But that still only brings you to under $70 instead of the $90 blow up with a tip. Okay, so let's wrap up. Bright skies, bikeable streets, oysters, and art friendly. That's what makes La Rochelle a serious contender. We prefer, or I prefer, my husband doesn't mind the gray days as much as I do. And I don't mind gray days. I just prefer more sunny days than gray days. But we prefer a sunnier life without that Mediterranean furnace. And it's a beautiful place for creatives. Would we live there? Absolutely. In fact, it's now #1 of our top 5 choices. Would you swap Paris gray for La Rochelle blue? Or are you craving mountains and vineyards and countryside instead? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for armchair exploring La Rochelle, France with me. Please hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. It really does help me out and helps move me toward being able to expand my channel. And I'll see you next Thursday for another armchair exploration. Tuesday, I'll still have a video, and Saturday will go live. But every Thursday will now be these little explorations of places in France. Let me know if you'd like us to research a place that you might like to be. Remember, most of our research is being centered in mid-sized cities. We're talking about 40 to 50,000 to 150,000. We're willing to go over that, but probably not less than that because of the transportation issue. See you next time.